Funding for this program is provided by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of the complete line of Cajun King seafood seasoning mixes and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products.
Louisiana. Hello, I'm Chef John Folse, welcoming you to this great state of ours. We're real proud of our people, places, and food, and I'd like for you to know a little bit more about it. So join me and some of my friends as we visit the historical food towns of this state and cook up another great Taste of Louisiana. Hello everybody and welcome to A Taste of Louisiana. I'm Chef John Folse, and boy am I happy that you stopped by today as we search out the historical food towns of Louisiana. Today we're going to St. Landry Parish, the heart of Acadiana. We're going to the town of Opelousas, the home of Jim Bowie. Here we're looking at the St. Landry Catholic Church, the mother church of Acadiana, founded in the late 1700s. This building was built in about 1930. This is the courthouse, and look at the size of these courthouses in little small Louisiana towns. I know Opelousas won't think it's a little small town, but massive buildings. This is the federal building, post office. Look at these grand buildings. This was the governor's mansion in Opelousas. During the Confederacy, the governor's office moved to Opelousas, and that was the mansion. This is the Pavi House, and again, just a great example of some of the architecture of early Louisiana towns. This house is made out of poured concrete, poured in a plant right in Opelousas. St. Landry Lumber Company, a great little Victorian building, and this St. Landry Lumber Company has been in the same family for many, many years right there. I mentioned Jim Bowie a minute ago. This is the Jim Bowie Oak, right in the center of historic Opelousas. Jim Bowie fought in the Alamo, fact is, with none other than Davy Crockett. This is the tourist center and the Jim Bowie Museum. The Venus House is one of the oldest homes in all of the Louisiana Purchase. This is mud and moss construction put between those hand-hewn cypress beams. A little two-room schoolhouse. These buildings are all part of La Vieux Village, the old village that the Historic Commission is putting together so people can view some of the early buildings of Opelousas in Cajun country, Louisiana. This is a little doctor's office. Mr. Chenier, everybody's heard of Zydeco. Clifton Chenier, this gentleman's father, was actually the father of Zydeco music. And my guest today, Carol Ann Andrepont, is from Opelousas, and she knows a lot about Zydeco, and she's going to tell us all about the music as well as the town itself. Zydeco is one of the very famous types of music that Louisiana is famous for. We're famous for food, we're famous for music, but I tell you what we're more famous for than anything else, and that's crawfish, and that's what we're going to be cooking today. We're going to be cooking a couple different dishes from Opelousas, and two of the dishes I'm cooking will center around crawfish. You have to get to Opelousas. When I spent a day driving through that town and looking at the beautiful old buildings, you can just imagine the gorgeous architecture in that town, and I'm amazed at how a little city has buildings of that grandeur. Not only Opelousas, all the other little historical food towns of Louisiana. You have to spend a couple months here with me. Crawfish, one of the main industries of Louisiana. We actually dedicate hundreds of thousands of acres of land to the crawfish industry. We ship out millions and millions of pounds, not only to ourselves here in Louisiana, but all over the nation and across the world. Crawfish is one of the very quickly developing crops in Louisiana. I want you to take a look at this bad boy. This is one of the red swamp crawfish. Oh, he's not that bad. He thinks he's bad, but pot of good boiling water, onions, celery, bell pepper, salt, and a good bottle of beer, I tell you, this will become a delicacy. I've taken this swamp crawfish, which is one of the many varieties we have. Swamp and white river crawfish are the two that we use most often. And I wanted to show you what it looks like. And as I say, not too bad. This platter of crawfish on the table is how crawfish comes packaged to us cooks in Louisiana. I have all these beautiful tails. They're already peeled. The crawfish is first steamed or boiled, and then we actually break the tail away and pull the meat out of the tail just like a little lobster, and it's packaged normally in 1 to 2 pound packages. Here we have a crawfish stew or a crawfish etouffee package because inside the package is the claws of the crawfish. Look at these gigantic big claws here. We would never throw that away. It's full of meat. So when we package the 2 pound packs, we actually package the claws right in. So the first dish that I want to do for you today is a Prairie crawfish stew. Now we have crawfish stews, crawfish etouffees, crawfish gumbos. Let me crank up this fire. Every household or every home in Louisiana you would find a pot of crawfish stew or etouffee or gumbo on the stove during crawfish season, which runs from about January of the year until about 4th of July. Normally we think of 4th of July as the ending of the crawfish season. And what I'm going to begin with here with this crawfish stew is my black iron pot, and I'll put into the pot equal parts of oil and flour to make the dark brown Cajun roux. Now I've cooked this roux to a degree of darkness that's about peanut color or about the color of caramel. And you can naturally take it to any different stages of color you would like, but for the crawfish stew, we like a nice dark caramel color. Into the pot, I'm going to put some of the flavors of Louisiana that I like to use, especially on a crawfish stew. Onions, celery, the trinity of Louisiana cooking as we call it. Onions, celery, and bell pepper. I'm going to put green bell peppers in here. Of course, you could use red or yellow for color. It naturally has the same flavor. And then I have to put a little bit garlic. I always love to put that garlic in there, and naturally crawfish would not be good crawfish without a couple spoons of garlic, whether we boil them, whether we make an etouffee, or whether we make the River Road or Prairie crawfish stew. Once the vegetables are sauteed lightly, we want to just wilt the vegetables in the pot. And again, I'm not too careful about the size of the vegetables. I cut them at all different sizes. I just kind of whack them because the little bitty ones will cook quickly. The large ones will take longer. Larger pieces will take longer to cook in the vegetables. And it'll add different flavors at different times into the roux. The main thing we're trying to do here with the brown roux is get that great nutty pecan flavor that the roux gives a pot, but yet at the same time, the flavor of the onion, celery, bell pepper, and garlic adds additional flavor to that roux. Once I saute the vegetables, then I'll add a little tomato sauce. We always put tomato sauce in our crawfish stew because it gives it that nice burnt orange color. It has a nice orange tint or hue to it, and that comes not only from the fat of the crawfish, but also from the tomato sauce that we put down into the pot. I'll also add, for those great Creoles of New Orleans, I'm going to add a little bit fresh cubed tomatoes. Now, some people in South Louisiana would never add tomatoes to a crawfish stew, only the sauce. They would leave the fresh tomatoes out. However, in the prairie regions, we find fresh tomatoes going into it all the time. I'll add a little bit of the fresh crawfish meat because I want to start the flavor of the crawfish down into my pot. I'm going to begin by putting all of these wonderful claws. Look at those claws, all full of meat. And not only are they full of meat, but they're going to really give the stew a nice look as we start to plate it up with all of those claws floating around inside of the stew. I'll put just enough crawfish tails into the pot to begin to get that crawfish flavor down into the roux. Now, the real secret to a good crawfish stew, and that is the crawfish stock. I've taken here some of those big, beautiful crawfish. Look at this. And I put them down into a pot of water with onions, celery, bay leaves, black peppercorns, lemons, all of those things to get a really nice crawfish stock. And I'm going to ladle the stock. This is cooked about 30 minutes. I'm going to ladle the stock right down into my roux pot. And you can imagine the amount of crawfish flavor that is now going right down into the roux, since I put the crawfish tails, the claws, and now the stock right down into that black iron pot. I always put my stock into the roux hot, because that way the cooking process does not stop. I want that cooking process to continue on, and if I put a cold stock down into the pot, I would have to sit here for about 30 minutes and wait for this crawfish stew to start boiling again, and I don't want that to happen. So I've added just enough stock to thin out the roux, and this is going to cook for about 30 minutes or so, just for that roux flavor to cook into the stock and create a really nice crawfish stew. Now, what I'll do is season lightly, because I do want to season the stew just a little bit, even though the stock is full of flavor. I'll add a little bit salt, not too much, a little bit cracked black pepper, and I am using cracked black pepper instead of cayenne, a little basil, a little thyme, and a touch of green onions. I have to put those nice green onions, and look how pretty that stew is with all of those great flavors starting to develop. I'll let this cook for about 30 minutes, and then I will add the rest of my crawfish tails down into that pot, because I don't want my crawfish to cook away, and if I do it too quickly, the crawfish will start to get mushy. So I'll reserve some, and I'll add it to the pot in just a little while. Okay, my next dish will be a very, very interesting dish using the tail meat of the crawfish that you saw down in that stock pot. I know what you were thinking. You were thinking I was going to throw those great crawfish tails away. It never happened in Louisiana. I'm going to peel them, put them off to the side, and then when a day or so later, when I'm looking for a good dish, I would use those tails. Or if I had boiled crawfish, I would reserve some of those tails that were left over from boiled crawfish to make this dish. This dish is a very traditional dish in South Louisiana, and it's a sausage crawfish rice. And I want you to look at the sausage ingredients that we could use in this particular dish. I've got many different types of sausages available to me in Louisiana. I have a heavy smoked pork sausage, which is smoked over pecan wood. I have a light smoked sausage, which isn't smoked quite as long, and it doesn't impart quite as heavy a smoke flavor. I've got a seasoned pork sausage, already seasoned with green onions and garlic and peppers. And then I have a plain pork and beef sausage that's seasoned only lightly with a little bit salt. 4 or 5 different sausages available for this dish, but the one that I've chosen to use for my rice crawfish sausage casserole is the heavy smoked sausage of Louisiana, the pecan smoked sausage. I'll put a little bit buttery flavored oil down into that pot. Let me lower my crawfish fire here. I put a little bit butter down into the pot, or buttery oil or vegetable oil, whatever you want to use. It's not really that important. And then I'll take my sausage, my heavy smoked sausage that I've already cut into little bitty cubes, little circles, and I'll put them down into that hot oil. Make sure that fire's up really nice. And this sausage is smoked, so it's already partially cooked. It's about 50% cooked. So I don't want to sit here and overcook the sausage. I just want to extract the great smoke of that sausage into the butter or into the oil, so I can pick up that smoke flavor into the finished product. Now that that's in and sauteing, I'll add the crawfish tails that I had left over when I made a stock a few days ago. I reserved those tails, and I'll put them down right into the sausage. Now imagine what's happening in this pot. Crawfish, sausage, all cooking together in the butter. That's going to put a wonderful smoked flavor right down into the butter, but that would probably be enough for most people in flavor. After all, you've got some great flavor here. Nah, not for us in Louisiana, no way. We're going to go ahead and put the normal seasonings that we always put. We have to put our trinity, our onions, celery, and bell pepper. And of course, in this pot, since it's going to be a white rice dish, I want to make sure that I add color. So I'm adding red bell pepper this time, and I'm going to add some yellow bell pepper this time. Again, a little bit garlic. There's no way I can make this rice sausage crawfish dish without garlic. And I want you to just think for a minute of all of the great flavors that's coming together in this saute pan. A little bit butter, the smoke of the sausage. The wonderful crawfish had a lot of flavor from the stock itself. And now onion, celery, bell pepper, and garlic. Look how pretty this is. This is almost good enough to eat just like it is, but watch what I'm going to add to the pot now. In Louisiana, we normally had big Cajun families. We normally didn't have enough smoked sausage. We probably didn't have quite enough crawfish if it was left over from a boil. So what we would do to extend the dish, I would break right down into the skillet. I would break 4 or 5 eggs that would come out of the hen house right down into the sausage mixture with the, this almost looks like a fried rice dish from Chinese cooking. But I want you to know that just about every developing cuisine in the world had some fashion of a fried rice using eggs as a major component. And the reason for it, very simple. It was an extender. We actually had an opportunity to use eggs as extra protein to mix into a dish to extend it, but yet give us a little more nourishment. Now, the final ingredient, I'm going to add a little bit cooked white rice. This rice is already cooked because I wouldn't want to have to sit here and cook it from scratch, although I could. But I'll add the rice into it, mix it into the skillet just like this, and look what's happening now. The rice is picking up not only the eggs, which is going to hold it all together in the casserole, but it's picking up the smoke of the sausage. It's picking up that wonderful stock flavor of the crawfish. It's obviously picking up all of that wonderful onion, celery, bell pepper, garlic flavor that we added down into the dish. And what would we use this dish for? Well, mainly in Louisiana, it's a breakfast dish. However, we could use it as a side dish, or we could put it under a number of different things. We could put it under a piece of broiled ham or bacon or some of the Acadian bacon from the pork loins, and we would have just a magnificent dish. And of course, I would serve it right in the casserole, right in the black iron skillet as the casserole itself. So that's how we would make this wonderful rice dish, and you can imagine the flavor here. Now quickly, I want to show you what I may serve in addition to all of this, and I have here, again, using crawfish from Opelousas area. I've got a garlic, fresh green bean, and crawfish salad, all mixed together, again, using the leftovers of the crawfish that may have been left from a boil or just a nice stock. Try that salad with your own vinaigrette. It's absolutely fantastic. Put shrimp in it, too, if you'd like. Okay. I told you a minute ago I had a great friend that was going to come to visit with me, Carol Ann Andrepont. She's a writer, a historian, but she's also director of the Historic Commission in Opelousas. Hey, in Opelousas. Come see, come sa. How you doing?
Good.
Come see, come sa. That's like this, like that, right?
Yeah, but you're supposed to say you feel good,
oh,
right?
I feel real good. Hey, it's so great to have you.
Good to have you. I smelled something. I heard Opelousas. I had to stop.
Hey, look, if you smell crawfish, you're going to stop whether you heard Opelousas or not, right?
And the mayor of Opelousas asked me to bring you something. Mayor John Joseph. That's information on the city.
Great.
And also, he gave you a pin, the city seal of Opelousas.
Oh, is this a key to get me into like the Palace Cafe for a nice big lunch right there on Main Street?
I don't know. You have to talk to Mr. Dukas about that, but
I will. Hey, tell the mayor thank you so much. I appreciate that. As I say, it's fantastic. I love Opelousas. We saw those beautiful scenes of Main Street just a minute ago, and I couldn't help but think how gorgeous a lot of these Louisiana cities are. Now, I know that Opelousas is called the gateway to Acadiana. It's called the heart of Louisiana. When we say the gateway to Acadiana, does that imply that all the Cajuns of Louisiana came and settled in Opelousas in the late 1700s?
Well, actually, the first Acadians that came after they were ousted from Canada settled in Opelousas. But then when Spain took over Louisiana, the Spanish government said no more Cajuns in Opelousas, so he sent them down to Tacapa. So we're not really Cajun country, but yet we are because we do those things, that the traditions and all the things that the Cajuns left us. For us, we do in Opelousas.
Well, great. You know, we were talking just a couple days ago, and you're from St. Landry Parish. I'm from St. James Parish. Here in Louisiana, we have parishes. Everybody out there, out of Louisiana, has counties.
Right.
And people are always asking me, why parishes in Louisiana and counties in the rest of the nation? I know you know the answer.
Well, in Louisiana, our subdivisions are parishes rather than counties, our political subdivisions. And first we were counties, but then in 1845 they had a constitutional convention and our counties were changed to parishes. Of course, that all goes back to our form of government, which is Napoleonic Code. It goes back to the Catholic Church. In a Catholic settlement, we would have had parishes rather than counties.
You mentioned Napoleonic Code. That's different in Louisiana,
right.
too. We have the Napoleonic Code, and the rest of the country has...
The common law,
the common
English
law, yeah.
common law.
And
yes.
why is that?
Well, I think it's, again, the French, the Catholic. The Napoleonic Code is strict law. It's very rigid, and the common law more gives people an opportunity to interpret laws more than our Napoleonic Code does.
Opelousas. When I think of the towns in Louisiana with strange names, and
Yeah.
we have a lot of
Yes.
we have a lot of strange names. And fact is, I bought a book not too long ago that had all of the names of Louisiana towns, and I think the name of it was strange sounding places in Louisiana. Where does the name Opelousas come from?
Well, who was here before any of us? The first people in the area, came 12,000 years ago. Of course, that were the Indians, the native Louisianians. Opelousas tribe was a band of the historic Attakapaw group of Louisiana. They lived in the area, so naturally, that's where the name comes from. Now, the name means black leg or man with black leg, and that's because these Indians had a light-colored body, but they either painted their legs dark or naturally had dark legs.
Well, I'll tell you, I know every one of these towns has a really great story as to why or where the name comes from, but I never knew Opelousas. Now, hey, I can tell people about that. You know, when I was in the Palace Cafe, we talked about the Palace Cafe a minute ago, I was in there, and on the counter was this big old platter of Praline Pecan Fudge.
Oh, yes.
As a young kid, the only dessert we ever had in Louisiana, I think, besides bread pudding and rice pudding, was fudge. Everybody made fudge for holidays, for Christmas,
Yes.
for parties. And I want to share with these guys right out here that recipe for praline fudge, because I think it's so easy to make. Anybody can make it quickly, and I want you to help me out.
Sure.
Why don't you grab that pot and kick up that fire right there? And you've done that many times. We put in this pot about, yeah, there you go. We put in this pot about 1/4 pound of butter, and this is such a simple recipe. Fudge can be made either with chocolate or vanilla, or it can be white fudge like Divinity. But this is probably one of the most simple recipes that I've ever seen for fudge, and at the same time has all the traditions of Louisiana, because it has the praline liqueur, the pecans. And what we're going to do is bring this 1/4 pound of butter to we want to get it melted. If you put a stick in there, just kick it up high. Just don't let it scorch, because don't let it burn or brown around the edges, because then the fudge will have more of a caramelized taste, and you don't really want that. But into that pound of that 1/4 pound of butter.
Okay.
You know what would we use instead of butter? A lot of people might say, I don't want to use butter. Margarine, I guess, would be just fine. We always use butter. Sorry, guys. We always use butter.
The real stuff in Louisiana.
Okay, stir that in there, and I'm going to do about I don't want to get you dressed dirty there, but go ahead and stir. We're going to put in about 3 cups of sugar, and we're just using white sugar. We want to bring it basically to a boil and melt it right here on the fire. We want to get the butter and the sugar all nice and melted. And once it melts, I would add a little can of evaporated milk. We're going to add that right into that, and we'll bring this to a boil for just a second and allow that to cook for a minute. Opelousas is...
Third oldest city in Louisiana.
No, Donaldsonville is the third oldest
John.
city.
No, we're the third oldest city in Louisiana.
What do you mean? Donaldsonville is the third oldest city in Louisiana.
Well, we have documents to prove that we're the third oldest city in Louisiana.
Well, look, I tell you, we're going to have to see those, because the city of Donaldsonville has been feuding with Opelousas for years over there.
But that's okay. That's just part of Louisiana.
If you've got the documents, you're probably going to win. We never have documents where I'm from. You're called the yam capital of the world. Now, sweet potatoes and yams are without a doubt the premier potato in the South, less long Louisiana.
Right.
Is there that big of a yam culture there? Why not sugarcane or cotton?
Well, we do have sugarcane and cotton, but yams are one of our main crops, and of course we have Louisiana yambly. So naturally, we have to be the yam capital of the world.
What is Yamboree?
The Yamboree is a big festival that we have to celebrate the yam industry, to celebrate that agricultural crop for Louisiana. Every October, our Yamboree is celebrated.
Now, I was told that the yams actually came to Louisiana by the Spaniards and coming from South and Central America and then coming up through Louisiana. But actually, when Louisiana was colonized, yams were being grown here by the Indians, right?
Right. They use that in their diet.
Is there any big packing or any big plants that process yams right in Opelousas?
We don't just grow them, we actually process them. We ship them all over the world. Probably some of the yams you use in your cooking come from Opelousas.
Zydeco. We talked about Zydeco, Clifton Chenier,
Right.
C.J. Chenier. Zydeco, what's Zydeco? Where did the name come from to begin with?
Well, the name, if you translate it, means snap bean. But the music actually used to be called French la-la music. And then in about the 1940s, along came a man by the name of Clifton Chenier, who was one of our citizens, and he coined the phrase Zydeco. And it's a unique blend of music created in Louisiana. It's Creole French and African American, and you can only find it here. And we're the birthplace of Zydeco.
The birthplace,
Right.
and I know that Clifton is the founder, so I tell you, I love it, and I can't wait to get to Opelousas to hear a little more about it. Into the butter, why don't you whip in some chocolate, and of course a little bit marshmallow cream.
Ooh.
And that's gonna be hard to whip in, and then just
This is
stir that
great.
in, pecans and a little bit of praline liqueur right down into it. Look at that. Now, as you stir that around, you're going to whip this for just a couple of minutes to blend it all together and pour it into a pan. And what we're going to have is this great big platter. I want you to take a look at this. This is what this is going to make after we pour it into a buttered pan and let it chill. I would recommend allowing this to sit overnight in the refrigerator or on the counter, because the butter and sugars will all set with the marshmallow cream to really make a nice tight fudge. I tell you, it's sweet, but it's great. Now we would finish our crawfish stew by adding a little bit crawfish into it, and we would serve it over white rice, a big platter of white rice, or of course in crepes or anything like that. And you know, I want to tell you, why would anybody, and you be quick, why would anybody want to visit Opelousas?
Well, it takes about 2 hours to really tell you that.
You got
fairs, festivals, history, people, culture, we got it all.
I'll be there. Thank you so much for
Good.
visiting with us, and thank y'all. And come back again as we cook up more of these great Taste of Louisiana. We're going to eat fudge.
Funding for this program was provided in part by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of Bruce's Yams and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products.
Chef John Folse has written a cookbook that allows you to explore the exciting world of Louisiana cuisine. The Evolution of Cajun and Creole Cuisine is a full-color, 352-page book containing food history and recipes for gumbo, jambalaya, makshu, and other Cajun dishes. For your copy, send a check or money order for $24.95 to Louisiana Public Broadcasting at the address on your screen. To use your credit card, call toll-free 1-800-973-7246 or visit our website at lpb.org.